Is what was written in various places true about CSNY at their height? The greater the fights, the better the music that came out of it immediately
very often.
afterwards?
It wasn't always like that. Sometimes it could be very detrimental, but there were times when we would be... I can remember a time in Philadelphia at the Spectrum where Stills and I were ready to go off on each other big time. I wanted to punch him right through into the next universe, and we went on and did one of the best shows we've ever done. What's it like then on stage? Where does the energy go when you really want to deck somebody and all that baggage is out there? It gets transmuted. It gets transmuted. I don't know how that happens, but it does. You get out there and you've got all this adrenaline pumping, and suddenly you are playing and you do something good and you look over and you, instead of being angry at each other, you smile at each other because you know you just did it great, and it just goes whoosh, boom, right over the top like a wave breaking, and it's a wonderful feeling. Is that a salve on the wound afterwards? Does it make it all right? Sure, or when you get off stage, do you say, all right, now I'm still pissed? No. You come off saying, man, I'm really sorry I got in your face. The musicality of Crosby, Stills, and Nash, I'm going to say CSNY. That way we'll get Neil in where he belongs, or where he doesn't. We'll just mix it all in. The musicality combined with some kind of social conscience made, songs like Ohio and Woodstock and Chicago, Deja Vu and Teach Your Children. Those were anthems of the late '60s and the early '70s. How nostalgic for that time do you get? Not very. The things I liked about it, wouldn't be impossible to achieve now. I liked it that because, the issues were so clear-cut. I mean, you looked at Nixon and you knew what was wrong. Because the issues were so clear-cut at that point, the society was very polarized, and people were willing to stand up and be counted. Well, I like that. I think that's a healthy, infusion of strength into the democratic process. That makes people get out and vote. That makes people get out and stand up and be counted. And I think that's what makes this country work. What was it like the day that Neil Young composed Ohio? It was very intense. Neil was very intense. Somebody came back to this house that he and I were at for the afternoon, and we were sitting outside on a porch in the sun playing a little guitar, and they brought back Life magazine, which had that picture in it of the girl kneeling over the kid dead on the concrete, and with that expression on her face of, what? Why? How could you do this? And I opened it to that, and I looked at it, and it shocked me, and I handed it to Neil, and it shocked him. And we just looked at it for a while. And then I don't know whether I handed him the guitar or he picked it up, but he picked up the guitar and he started playing, and he started writing. And he wrote a very simple song. And at the end of it, I started adding to it something. But it was powerful. And I got on the phone right away to Graham and said, we're coming to L.A., book the studio. We've got to record this now. You wrote Guinevere, all about the same thing. And obviously you're all very good friends. Usually these things, I feel safe in saying, don't work out quite that way. No, they don't. I credit it to all of us, really caring about each other. We all loved each other, very much, and these were not really very possessive relationships. When I went with Joan, I loved her a lot, and it was a wonderful time, but I didn't expect to stay there, and neither did she. And when she went to Graham, my feeling was, how could I, how could I be unhappy about two people that I really loved being together and being happy? I couldn't see anything wrong with that. And because I didn't feel I owned her in the first place. And we've avoided most of the pitfalls there. It was very fortunate. Interesting background about your father that I'm sure most people aren't aware of. He won the first Oscar for cinematography. He was the cinematographer on a movie in the early '30s called Taboo.
which
Was
I've
it the first one or one of the first ones?
I was told the first, but
among
among the first. I never saw that movie, but all of us have seen High Noon, and he was the cinematographer on High Noon. So there's a show business background there.
Yeah.
That doesn't necessarily mean he appreciated what you did.
He did and he didn't. You know, he thought it was too loud. But he thought it was nice, you know, that I was at least doing something with my life. It's funny you should bring it up, actually, because they have just recently decided they found a good print of Taboo, the movie that he got the Academy Award for, and they're going to re-release it in art theaters and on a videotape, because it is such a classic film. It's one of the finest examples of early cinematography and one of the finest examples of early filmmaking.
Listed on some flimsy grounds during the McCarthy era, and he didn't even realize it, except he couldn't get work. Didn't realize it, as I understand the story, until they tried to hire him on From Here to Eternity, and somebody said, don't touch this guy.
They wouldn't let him be first camera. They would only let him be second unit. And you know, it's weird. At that point during the McCarthy era, if you weren't a little bit to the right of Attila the Hun, you were, you know, a pinko. And my father, I don't think ever was anything more than a liberal Democrat, you know, but he did get, you know, tarred with the same brush and had a long time of it being very difficult for him to get good work.
What are some of the projects you're working on now?
I've sung a lot on other people's records. You know, I mean, obviously we also, you know, Crosby, Stills and Nash just did a big push on our record Live It Up, which did well. And we did a long tour, 72 dates. That went well, and we were very, very happy about it. I have done this box set, you know, with the Byrds, which I think is a milestone. I'm really proud of it. And fortunately for us, it's doing very well. I've also sung with other people quite a bit. I sang on Bonnie Raitt's Nick of Time album. I sang on Bob Dylan's new record. I sang 2 songs on Phil Collins' But Seriously album. And he's a wonderful guy and one of the least affected musicians that I know by stardom. He's as big as you can get, and he just is as real as you can be. And that's been a great deal of fun. I've been trying to write more. I love to write screenplays, and so I've been working on that some. Since I've been in a wheelchair for the last month and a half, I've started to write a screenplay about a kid in a wheelchair. It's taught me an awful lot. I know that I certainly am going to want to do more work for, you know, the paralyzed vets and stuff, because I now understand what it's like to, if you want something that's 3 feet away from you, you have to get into a chair and get over there to get it, or ask somebody to help you to get it. It's really a lesson.
There's somewhat adverse circumstances, still recovering from the motorcycle accident, spending 2 nights here with us. On January 16th, when he went into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame as a member of the Byrds, Don Henley gave the induction speech, but in doing some research, it could have been Jerry Garcia from the Grateful Dead. I don't know if you've heard this, but this is what he said about you. He said, David Crosby has never gotten the credit he deserves as a musician. He's an uncanny singer with as much vocal control as anybody I've ever seen or worked with. Pretty high praise.
Jerry, thanks.
We're glad you're back, literally and figuratively.
Thanks.
Thanks for spending the time with us.
It's been a pleasure.
We got to go. See you later.